Hello and welcome back to the It's Cool to Learn History channel. This is part 2 of the history of France. Enjoy! France and England had been fighting the Hundred Years' War since 1337, and in the end, after several setbacks, France emerged victorious. At the conclusion of the Hundred Years' War in 1453, Charles VII, victorious and secure on his throne, instituted several reforms that helped strengthen the monarchy and reduce the dependence on feudal lords. He established the first permanent French professional army, freeing the crown from reliance on feudal lords, thus setting the stage for France becoming a military power. His son, Louis XI, dismantled the foundations of feudal power, paving the way for a centralized monarchy. King Louis XI of France played a key role in consolidating power in the monarchy and undermining the feudal order. He implemented significant reforms, including the development of a stronger central government, which helped to establish France as a dominant force in Europe. Through diplomacy, Louis XI created alliances and kept rivals in check. He preferred to use extensive networks of diplomacy, spies, and intricate plotting to trap his feudal rivals rather than engaging in open warfare. This patient, cunning strategy successfully dismantled the power of the great nobles, unifying France under a strong, centralized monarchy, earning him the nickname Spider King. France was a central protagonist throughout the Italian Wars, 1494 to 1599, initiating the conflicts with King Charles VIII's invasion of Italy in 1494, driven by dynastic claims to the Kingdom of Naples and the fragmented political landscape of the Italian peninsula. This initial incursion, while temporarily securing Naples, proved futile since a coalition of Italian states, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire formed the League of Venice to drive the French out. Despite the setback, subsequent French monarchs, including Louis XII and Francis I, continued to press their claims, particularly over Milan and Naples. Louis XII invaded in 1499, successfully capturing Milan, but failed in Naples against Spain. These early wars established a pattern of French attempts to assert dominance in Italy, often met by shifting alliances of Italian states and the rising power of Habsburg Spain and the Holy Roman Empire, eager to prevent French hegemony in the region. French involvement deepened and evolved into a wider struggle against the Habsburgs under Francis I and Henry II. However, the rivalry with Emperor Charles V, who inherited vast territories including Spain and the Holy Roman Empire, led to a prolonged and often devastating series of conflicts across Italy. Despite French efforts, including alliances with the Ottoman Empire, the sustained power of the Habsburgs proved formidable. By the final stages of the wars, France was largely in achieving its long-term territorial ambitions, retaining only limited enclaves in northern Italy after the Treaty of Cateau-Cambrésis in 1559. Ultimately, the wars drained French resources and shifted the balance of power in Italy towards Spanish Habsburg dominance. The French Wars of Religion, 1562 to 1598, were a series of 8 civil conflicts that tore France apart, fueled by deep religious divisions between Catholics and the growing Protestant Huguenot minority. These struggles were not solely about faith, but also intertwined with intense power struggles among leading noble families like the Catholic Guises and the Protestant Bourbons, all vying for influence over a succession of weak monarchs. In one of the most infamous events, St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre in 1572, thousands of Huguenots were slaughtered, severely escalating the violence. The wars ultimately ended when King Henry IV, a former Protestant who converted to Catholicism, issued the Edict of Nantes in 1598. This granted significant religious and civil rights to Huguenots, thus stabilizing the nation. Often viewed as a religious conflict, France's involvement in the 30 Years' War was mainly a political one, driven by its rivalry with the powerful Habsburg dynasty. Led by Cardinal Richelieu, France, a Catholic nation, initially provided financial support to Protestant states like Sweden to weaken the Habsburg Empire on its borders. After the Peace of Prague in 1635, France entered the war directly, aiming to dismantle Habsburg dominance in Europe. Key victories, such as the Battle of Rocroi in 1643 and the Battle of Lens in 1648, decisively broke the military power of the Spanish Habsburgs. These crucial military successes, alongside those of their Swedish allies, contributed to the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. This treaty significantly diminished Habsburg power and cemented France's new position as the preeminent power on the continent. In the 16th century, European powers were searching for a more direct route to the lucrative markets of Asia. to avoid the long and dangerous sea routes in the southern hemisphere controlled by Portugal and Spain. King Francis I commissioned Giovanni de Verrazzano and Jacques Cartier to sail westward in search of this passage. While neither found the route, their explorations were crucial. Verrazzano's 1524 voyage provided the first detailed map of the North American Atlantic coast from what is now North Carolina to Newfoundland. A decade later, Cartier's expeditions up the St. Lawrence River not only established a foothold for French claims, but also provided detailed knowledge of the interior of the continent, paving the way for future French settlement and the fur trade that would define New France. Beyond North America, French expansion was primarily driven by trade and the establishment of colonial outposts in the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. During the 17th and 18th centuries, France established profitable sugar colonies in the West Indies. The most lucrative of these was Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti. Simultaneously, French trading companies founded small coastal settlements in Africa and Asia. Locations such as Senegal in Africa and Pondicherry in India were established to facilitate the trade of valuable goods like spices, textiles, and enslaved people. While less extensive than their British counterparts, these colonies were vital to the French global economy and naval power. The rise of absolutism in France was a direct response to the religious wars of the 16th century, which had severely weakened the monarchy and left the country in chaos. Powerful cardinals Richelieu and Mazarin centralized power by reducing the influence of the nobility and dismantling private armies. This process culminated under Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King, who fully embodied the concept of the monarch as the ultimate authority. By forcing the aristocracy to reside at his extravagant palace in Versailles, Louis XIV effectively neutralized their political power and maintained constant surveillance over them. The War of the Spanish Succession began when King Louis XIV accepted the Spanish throne for his grandson, Philip of Anjou, a move that threatened to merge the two most powerful monarchies in Europe. This action prompted a coalition of nations, including England, Austria, and the Dutch Republic, to form the Grand Alliance to prevent a potential French hegemony. Though initially successful, the conflict soon turned against them, with French forces suffering a series of defeats. As the long and costly war exhausted all sides, France faced immense financial strain and a severe domestic crisis. The conflict was ultimately concluded by the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which allowed Philip to remain King of Spain, but that both Bourbon dynasties, French and Spanish, would remain separate. Queen Anne's War, the North American theater of the War of the Spanish Succession, was fought from 1702 to 1713 and primarily involved France, England, and their respective Native American allies. The conflict saw fierce fighting along the northern border between New England and New France, with multiple raids and skirmishes carried out by both sides. A notable event was the sack of Deerfield in 1704, where French and Native American forces raided the Massachusetts town, taking many captives. The war ultimately ended with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which resulted in significant territorial gains for the British, who acquired Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and the Hudson Bay territories from the French. France's involvement in the War of the Austrian Succession began when it sided with Prussia and Bavaria, hoping to seize Habsburg territories and undermine Maria Theresa's claim to the throne. The French initially found success in the Austrian Netherlands, modern Belgium, but the costly war soon became a grueling struggle against a growing coalition led by Great Britain. Despite achieving a notable victory at the Battle of Fontenoy in 1745, the conflict strained France's economy and military resources. The war concluded with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle in 1748, which restored the pre-war boundaries and saw France return its conquests. This resulting truce paved the way for the 7 Years' War. The 7 Years' War was a truly global conflict that began as a struggle for control of the Ohio River Valley. In North America, the conflict was known as the French and Indian War, with France and its Native American allies fighting against Great Britain and its colonies. The war quickly spread across Europe and other parts of the world. Despite some early victories, France struggled to maintain its naval dominance and supply its colonies. The war ended with a decisive British victory, forcing France to sign the Treaty of Paris in 1763. This treaty led to the demise of France's first colonial empire and the loss of all its North American territories. This war also extended to the Caribbean, India, and West Africa. The French and Indian War was significantly fueled by the strategic importance of the Ohio River Valley, which both France and Britain sought to dominate for the expansion of their colonial settlements. This fertile land was not just vital for agriculture, but also crucial for the lucrative fur trade. Controlling it allowed for greater access to the interior of North America, effectively making the struggle for this territory the spark that ignited the wider conflict known as the 7 Years' War. France played a crucial role in the American Revolution, driven by its desire to weaken Britain and recover from its loss in the 7 Years' War. After the 1776 Declaration of Independence, figures like Marquis de Lafayette joined the American cause, strengthening the alliance. In 1778, France formally recognized the United States and entered the war, especially after British aggression toward French ships. French military support proved decisive, particularly at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781, which led to Britain's surrender. However, the cost of involvement strained France's economy, leading to the financial turmoil that ignited the French Revolution. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this great history channel. Stay tuned for part 3,